She was only 19 when her parents threw her out, pregnant, abandoned, and betrayed by the one she loved. Alone in the world, will she survive the pain, or will fate write a new story for her? Sit back and listen as we journey into this emotional story. In a quiet town on the edge of the city lived a young girl named Sarah. Beautiful, kind, and full of dreams. She worked at a small cafe owned by her aunt, always humming softly as she served customers. But fate took an unexpected turn the day she met Daniel Collins. The only son of a rich businessman, Daniel was charming, with a smile that could melt a heart. Though they came from different worlds, love paid no attention to class. He would wait outside the cafe every evening just to walk her home. At first, Sarah resisted. "Your father will never approve," she would say, but Daniel would only smile and reply, "I don't care what he says. You are all I want." Months passed, and their love deepened, until one night, under the soft glow of a streetlight, Sarah whispered the words that changed everything. "Daniel, I'm pregnant." Silence filled the air. Daniel's smile faded. Fear replaced love. When his parents found out, chaos erupted. "Pregnant?" Mr. Collins shouted. "You've brought shame to this family." Mrs. Collins glared at Sarah. "You poor girls are all the same. You see a little comfort and you trap our son." Sarah cried, but Daniel, the man she trusted, stood frozen. He said nothing. When she looked into his eyes for defense, all she found was cowardice. And that night, Daniel turned his back on her. Sarah's parents, humiliated by gossip, threw her out of the house. "You've brought disgrace to us," her mother cried. And just like that, Sarah found herself alone, rejected by everyone she loved. Sarah wandered the streets for days, her hands resting on her swollen belly. The night wind bit through her thin dress as she searched for somewhere, anywhere, to rest. Eventually she found a small, run-down clinic on the outskirts of town. The nurse on duty, an older woman named Mrs. Barlow, looked at her pitifully. "Child, where are your people?" she asked softly. Tears rolled down Sarah's face. "I have no one," she whispered. "Please, just help me bring my baby into this world." Days turned into weeks, and the pain of loneliness became heavier than the child she carried. Finally, one stormy night, her screams echoed through the clinic walls, and a baby boy was born. Tiny, innocent, beautiful. Sarah held him close, whispering, "Ethan, my little light." But her joy was short-lived. Mrs. Barlow, the midwife, returned the next morning with a hard look on her face. "Listen, Sarah," she began, "you have no family, no money, no place to stay. This child will suffer." Sarah's eyes widened. "No, I'll take care of him." The woman shook her head. "You can't. I know an orphanage. They'll look after him." Sarah clutched her baby tightly, her tears falling on his soft cheeks. "I can't give him away. He's all I have left." But Mrs. Barlow was firm. "You'll thank me one day. Sometimes love means letting go." That night, while Sarah slept, Mrs. Barlow wrapped baby Ethan in a small blue blanket with Sarah's name stitched on the corner and carried him away. She left him at the gate of St. Mary's orphanage, under the cold rain. When Sarah woke up and found the crib empty, she screamed in anguish. She ran out barefoot into the storm, searching and calling, "Ethan, my baby, where are you?" But the night gave no answer. Sarah fell to her knees, her voice breaking into sobs. "I'm sorry, my child. Please forgive me." Years passed. The baby Sarah wept for had grown into a quiet, thoughtful boy named Ethan. Life in St. Mary's orphanage was harsh. Too many children, too little love. Ethan never caused trouble. While others fought for food or toys, he would sit by the window staring at the sky. He often wondered, "Who am I? Why did no one want me?" Sister Agnes, one of the nuns, noticed his loneliness. She would pat his head gently and say, "Some children are born into families, and some are born to find them." Those words became his comfort, even when he cried himself to sleep. At 10, Ethan found something that changed everything. While cleaning the storage room, he discovered an old blue baby blanket, faded but carefully stitched with a name, Sarah. He held it close, whispering, "Is that my mother's name?" From that moment, he made himself a silent promise. "One day I'll find her," but finding her wasn't easy. The orphanage didn't keep records of children abandoned at the gate. And every year, families came and left, choosing others, never him. He watched his friends leave one by one until he became one of the oldest children there. One evening, after another couple walked away from him, Sister Agnes knelt beside him. "Don't lose hope, Ethan. Sometimes God saves the hardest path for his strongest children." Ethan nodded, wiping his tears. He didn't understand what the future held, but one thing was certain. He would not let the pain of being unwanted define him. And so, he worked harder than any other child, studying late, helping others, learning to survive on his own. His eyes carried wisdom beyond his years, and his heart, though scarred, remained kind. By the time Ethan turned 18, he had earned a scholarship to study in the city. As he packed his few belongings, he folded the blue blanket carefully and whispered, "I'm coming for you, Mother, whoever you are." He walked away from the orphanage gates, stepping into a world that had once thrown him away. Time had not been kind to Sarah. It had been 18 long years since she lost her baby, and not a single day passed without the weight of guilt pressing on her heart. She now lived in the city, not as the young girl who once dreamed of love, but as a tired woman trying to survive. Every morning, she swept the floors of Everbright Towers, a tall building filled with people in suits who barely noticed her existence. Her co-workers called her Auntie Sarah, but none knew the story behind her quiet eyes. Sometimes, when she saw mothers drop their children at school nearby, her heart would ache all over again. She would whisper to herself, "If only I had held on. Maybe my son would still be with me." Meanwhile, Daniel, the man who once promised her forever, was now living a life of wealth and emptiness. He had married Clara, a glamorous woman from another rich family. But their union was built on status, not love. Clara loved luxury and control. Daniel loved peace, something she never gave. Despite their wealth, they had no children. Doctors said nothing was wrong, but Clara refused to try any longer. "Children are a distraction," she would say coldly. "Let's enjoy our life." But deep inside, Daniel felt something missing, a hollow space that success couldn't fill. He would sometimes stand by his window late at night, staring at the city lights, whispering, "I wonder where she is, and what became of her." Fate, however, was already moving silently. One evening, as Sarah finished mopping the office floor, she looked out the window and saw a young man getting off a bus, holding a small bag and a folded blue blanket in his hand. She didn't know it yet, but that boy was Ethan, her son. The same building where she cleaned floors by dawn was where her son was about to begin his new job the next morning. Two souls broken by the same past were about to cross paths again without even knowing it. The morning sun painted the city gold as Ethan adjusted his worn tie and took a deep breath in front of Everbright Towers. It was his first day at work, a part-time office assistant job he got through his scholarship program. He smiled faintly at his reflection in the glass door. "This is the beginning," he whispered. Inside, Sarah was already cleaning the lobby floors. Her back ached, but she didn't complain. She paused when she heard the elevator doors open, and for a reason she couldn't explain, her heart skipped. Ethan walked in, polite and confident, his eyes scanning the hallway. Their eyes met briefly, a young man and a weary woman, just two strangers sharing a glance. But something stirred in Sarah's heart, a strange warmth she couldn't describe. "Good morning, Mom," Ethan greeted kindly. Sarah smiled weakly. "Good morning, my son," she replied softly, not realizing the truth in her words. That simple moment passed, but destiny had just opened its first door. As days turned into weeks, Ethan proved himself hardworking and humble. He was the first to arrive and the last to leave. Even Mr. Daniel Collins, the CEO, noticed him. One afternoon, Daniel called him in. "Young man," Daniel said, adjusting his cufflinks, "you remind me of someone I used to know. Same focus, same hunger for success." Ethan smiled nervously. "Thank you, sir. I just want to make something of my life." But when Daniel looked at him closely, a flicker of confusion crossed his face. The boy's eyes, they looked strangely familiar. He brushed it off. "It's nothing," he thought. "Just coincidence." Sarah, meanwhile, often saw Ethan in the halls, helping co-workers, staying late, reading during breaks. Each time, her heart ached in ways she couldn't explain. One evening, as she watched him from afar, she whispered to herself, "Why do I feel like I've known you all my life?" Ethan, unaware, still kept his mother's name, Sarah, tucked in his mind, waiting for the day he would find her. Little did he know, the woman who swept the floors he walked on was the same woman who once wept for him in the rain. Weeks turned into months at Everbright Towers. Ethan had become like a light in that building, respectful, humble, and always willing to help. To everyone, he was just another hard-working young man trying to survive. But to Sarah, he was a mystery wrapped in something painfully familiar. One evening, after most of the workers had left, Sarah found Ethan sitting alone in the break room. His face was buried in an old blue blanket, its corners worn but neatly folded. Sarah froze, her breath caught in her throat. That blanket, the one with the name Sarah stitched on the edge, the same blanket she had wrapped around her newborn son 20 years ago. Her mop slipped from her hand, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Ethan looked up. "Oh, I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't see you." Sarah forced a shaky smile. "It's all right. That blanket." Ethan interrupted softly. "It's all I have from my mother. She left it with me when I was a baby." Sarah's heart pounded so hard she thought it would break through her chest. She wanted to scream, "I'm your mother," but the words died in her throat. Tears welled in her eyes, and she quickly turned away before he could see. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat on her small bed, trembling. "Could it be?" she whispered. "Could that boy be my Ethan?" The next day, she asked one of the HR clerks about him. "Oh, Ethan?" The clerk smiled. "Yes, he's a scholarship intern, grew up in an orphanage." "No parents, poor boy." Sarah's knees went weak. Her suspicion turned to certainty. It was him, her son. The same little boy she lost to the storm. She wanted to run to him, to hug him, to say she was sorry, but fear held her back. What if he hates me? What if he never forgives me? So Sarah kept her secret, quietly watching from a distance, praying for courage. Sometimes she would leave small snacks on his desk before he arrived, or quietly pick up papers he dropped. Ethan noticed the kindness, but never guessed who it came from. In silence, Sarah began to live again, her heart finally beating for a reason. But fate, as always, had other plans. The truth that united them was about to collide with the man who once tore them apart, Daniel Collins. It was a Friday morning at Everbright Towers, and the office buzzed with the arrival of Mrs. Clara Collins, Daniel's elegant but cold-hearted wife. Whenever she visited, everyone moved faster, spoke softer, and smiled wider, because behind her perfect red lips was a tongue sharp enough to wound pride. Ethan, busy arranging files in the conference room, didn't even notice when she entered. A moment later, she shouted, "You there, be careful with that coffee." Startled, he turned, and the cup slipped from his hand, splashing across the floor and staining her expensive white dress. The room froze. Clara's face twisted with fury. "You useless boy," she screamed, slapping him hard across the face. The sound echoed through the hall. Everyone stared, terrified. Before Ethan could speak, Daniel stormed in. "What's going on here?" Clara pointed at Ethan. "This clumsy cleaner poured coffee on me. You should fire him immediately." Daniel looked at Ethan, and for a brief moment he hesitated. Something about the boy's trembling eyes, that same mixture of pain and humility, it pierced his heart, but pride won. "You're dismissed," he said coldly. "Pack your things and leave." Ethan's voice cracked. "Please, sir, I didn't mean—" "I said get out," Daniel shouted, slamming the desk. Sarah, who had been cleaning in the hallway, heard everything. She dropped her broom and ran in, just in time to see Ethan standing there, humiliated, tears in his eyes. She looked from Ethan to Daniel, her heart breaking into pieces. She couldn't take it anymore. "Stop," she cried, her voice trembling. "Please, stop this cruelty." Everyone turned to stare. Daniel frowned. "And who are you to speak here?" Sarah's hands shook as she pointed at Ethan. "You don't know what you've done. That boy, that young man you just humiliated." Tears streamed down her face. "He's your son, Daniel, our son." Gasps filled the room. Clara's jaw dropped. Ethan stood frozen, confusion and shock on his face. Daniel's eyes widened as the truth sank in. The face he had found strangely familiar, the eyes that mirrored his own. Sarah collapsed to her knees, crying. I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't want you to find out this way. I gave you up because I had nothing. Because they made me choose between you and survival. Ethan took a step back, his breath shaky. You both threw me away, he said in a whisper, his voice breaking like glass. Then he turned and walked out, leaving them both in silence and shame. Sarah reached after him, sobbing, "Ethan, please," but the door closed behind him, and the echo of his footsteps was the sound of 20 years of pain walking away. The entire office went silent after Ethan stormed out. For a moment, no one moved, not even the air dared to breathe. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest as Sarah's words replayed in his mind. "He's your son, Daniel. Our son." He staggered backward and sank into his chair. "Sarah, what did you just say?" he asked, his voice trembling. Sarah's tears wouldn't stop. "It's true. He's the child we had in college, the one your parents forced us to abandon. I tried to keep him, Daniel, but I had nothing. No family, no help, no home." She dropped to the floor, clutching her chest. "I thought giving him up was saving him. But it haunted me every single day." Daniel rubbed his face with both hands, shaking his head as if trying to erase the truth. "Oh God," he whispered. "Ethan, my son, the boy I just fired." Clara stood frozen, her face pale with disbelief and jealousy. "Daniel, she's lying," she snapped. "You can't believe this woman. That boy is just another poor street cleaner." Daniel shot her a look that silenced her instantly. "Enough, Clara," he barked. "For once, just stop." He turned to Sarah, voice softening. "Why didn't you tell me? Why after all these years?" Sarah looked up, broken but calm. "I tried, Daniel. I sent letters. I came to your house once, but your guards threw me out. You had already married her. You had a new life." Her voice cracked. "And I had nothing to offer except pain." Daniel felt tears sting his eyes, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in decades. He leaned back, his breath heavy, his world collapsing. "I remember that day," he murmured. "My father said you wanted to trap me with a baby. He said you ran away." I believed him. Sarah looked at him, her eyes full of quiet sorrow. "You believed everyone but me." A long silence followed. The clock ticked on the wall, cold and cruel. Then Daniel stood up suddenly, his voice hoarse with determination. "Where is he now?" Sarah shook her head. "I don't know. He won't listen to me anymore." Daniel grabbed his car keys. "Then I'll find him, even if it takes all night." As he rushed out of the office, Sarah whispered softly through her tears, "Please, God, don't let him be too late this time." Clara stood in the corner, trembling with rage and fear. For the first time, her perfect life was cracking, and she knew that no amount of luxury could fix what was coming. The night was heavy with rain. Thunder rolled across the sky as Daniel drove through the wet, narrow streets, his eyes scanning every corner, every bus stop, every alley. "Ethan," he shouted from his car window, his voice breaking against the storm. The wipers struggled against the rain, but he didn't care. He just kept driving. His clothes were soaked, his face pale, but in his heart, one fire burned. Regret. All those years of success, wealth, and fame now felt meaningless. The child he abandoned, the woman he betrayed, they were the only things that truly mattered. He stopped near an old church, where a few homeless people sat under a leaking roof. Among them, he saw a young man, drenched, shivering, clutching a small bag. "Ethan," Daniel whispered. The boy looked up, his eyes swollen from crying. "What do you want from me?" he asked sharply. "Haven't you done enough?" Daniel stepped closer, his voice trembling. "I came to say I'm sorry. I didn't know you were my son. I was blind, foolish, and proud. But please, please forgive me." Ethan stared at him, disbelief clouding his face. "My mother begged for help. You turned her away. You called her worthless." Daniel's voice cracked. "I didn't know, son. I was lied to. But that doesn't excuse it. I failed her. I failed you." Tears fell down his cheeks as he knelt on the wet ground. "I spent years chasing money, thinking it would fill the emptiness. But I was wrong. The only thing I ever truly needed was you." Ethan's anger began to melt into confusion, then sorrow. He looked at the man before him, drenched, broken, stripped of pride. Sarah appeared from behind, holding an umbrella, her eyes wide with emotion. "Ethan," she whispered, "forgive him. Forgive yourself, we've all suffered enough." The rain slowed, and for a moment, silence filled the night. Ethan's lips trembled. Then slowly he stepped forward and hugged Daniel tightly. Daniel held him, sobbing like a child. "My boy, my son, I'm so sorry." Sarah stood beside them, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in years, the pain in her heart began to fade, replaced by peace. As the rain washed over them, it felt as though heaven itself was cleansing their past. Months after that rainy night, Daniel made a decision that shocked everyone. He divorced Clara, the woman who had built her world on pride and deceit, and walked away from the empty empire he once thought was everything. When reporters asked why, he simply said, "Because I finally remembered what truly matters: family, forgiveness, and love." Sarah stood beside him that day, her eyes filled with quiet strength. Years of pain had softened her, but love had made her glow again. Soon after, Daniel gathered his board of directors and introduced a new face, Ethan. Dressed in a simple suit, humble yet confident, Ethan stood before the crowd of powerful men who once bowed to his father. Daniel smiled proudly and said, "Meet your new CEO, Ethan Williams, my son." There was silence, then applause, not just for a young man's success, but for a story of redemption that no one could ignore. Ethan took the microphone, his voice steady but emotional. "This company was built with hard work, but today it stands for something greater: forgiveness, second chances, and the strength of love." Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she watched from the front row. Her heart whispered, "The child they threw away has become the man everyone now stands for." Months later, Daniel and Sarah were married in a beautiful ceremony, surrounded by family, friends, and staff. It wasn't a grand wedding, but it was filled with peace, laughter, and genuine joy. They moved into a new mansion outside the city, a home filled with warmth, not wealth. There, every morning, Sarah cooked breakfast while Daniel read the newspaper and Ethan prepared for work. The family that once fell apart had finally been restored. Stronger than before, as Daniel watched the sunrise one morning, he said quietly, "Sometimes life takes everything from you, just to show you what truly matters." And Sarah smiled, holding his hand. "And sometimes the child you threw away becomes your greatest blessing." Never despise humble beginnings or true love. When love is pure, even time and pain cannot destroy it. They only make it stronger. The end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting folktales, full of drama, lessons, and inspiration. Stay tuned for the next story that will touch your heart. Thanks for watching.